Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for this workshop on mapping the buyer journey from the perspective of two awesome product marketers. So dig in, buckle up your seatbelt, and we're going to be diving into this exciting topic. I think the thing that I think about, gentlemen, is that a lot of the time we are doing things, and if we're not really strategic about them, they won't have the maximum impact, right? If they're not tying to that buyer journey, then at times the sales organization, for example, will not really understand where the assets or the content or the initiatives that we're working on, where they fit into their sales motion. And overall, leadership might not understand, hey, this is how this is helping the buyer journey. But without further ado, why don't we go ahead real quick and just go around the horn, Nitin? Maybe you can give us a quick intro.
Yes, absolutely. So great to be here, George, and to be joined by both you and Justin. I mean, this is a real honor. So I'm super excited. A little bit about myself. So for the audience, my name is Nitin Kartik. I am director of product marketing at Carbine. We are a New York-based public safety technology company. And a couple of interesting things about me. I got my MBA at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, and I got my master's at Stanford University. Um, Also, fun fact, I've also been featured on BBC TV as a subject matter expert. So do check out my LinkedIn. You'll see a nice, interesting video about that. I've worked in various different industries, currently in public safety. I've also been with e-commerce at Amazon, the Audible audiobook division. I've been in automotive with TomTom. I've been in media with SiriusXM. And so I'm a lifelong learner. I love getting to know different industries, different customer segments, and finding out how product marketing works in all these different industries. So super excited to bring my knowledge and my background and help the audience take things to the next level.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And you're also one of the nicest folks that I've met in a long time. And that shines through your content on LinkedIn. So thank you
Me,
so much.
me and Justin, I'm the second nicest guy. Justin's the first nicest guy.
Totally. Well, I get an opportunity to work with Justin on a daily basis. So I feel blessed. Justin, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, excited to be here again with you guys, chatting about some of my favorite topics. So I'm Justin Dorfman, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called AssetMule. I've been in the SaaS space for about 15 years now, and I started my career actually as a salesperson, and eventually made my way to the other side of the coin as a product marketer. So I like to think I have a little bit of a unique perspective, having seen both sides of the table, and very excited to dig into this topic today of the buyer's journey. I think it's one that is very misunderstood, and but it's very important, very very strategic, and one that we think a lot about at AssetMule. So a little bit about AssetMule: we are a SaaS platform for product marketing and sales teams to work together to create more personalized, interactive, and trackable sales assets. And these assets are obviously really important at each stage of the buyer journey to really give buyers the information they need to move forward and ultimately make a purchasing decision. So very relevant topic, and one that we think about definitely on a daily basis. So excited to dig in.
Awesome. And for the folks watching this, take out your pen and paper if you do have any questions, and jot them down as you're going through this workshop, and go ahead and comment on the comment feed here on LinkedIn. We are more than happy, whether you're watching this at any time in the future, to answer your questions, jump on DMs, whatever we need to be of service. So Justin, why don't we go ahead and kick off kind of maybe some basic concepts. Where do we start to understand the buyer journey?
Yeah, good question. I think as with a lot of things with product marketing, it all starts with really defining and understanding your ideal customer profile, right? And within that customer profile, the different personas that are involved in a purchasing decision. So the way that I've usually approached understanding the buyer's journey is by talking to a lot of people within those target customer companies and the various different personas, and really understanding how a purchase happens, right? I like to ask questions around, what was the last major purchase you made, and walk me through each of the steps. Or if they have purchased similar solutions to the one that we're selling, understanding what that buying process looked like. And I think, again, it's all about understanding who's involved in that purchasing process. What are the various steps that go into making that purchase? What sort of information is needed to make that purchasing decision? So I like to start there. And then I also like to dig into the other side of the coin, which is the sales team of the company that I work at, right? And understanding from their perspective what the buyer's journey looks like and how it aligns with their sales process, right? And specifically, I like to identify where objections or key friction points come up in that sales process, so that I can start to think about what are the various tools and assets I can bring to the table that can really align both sides of the table, right? Align the buyer by giving them the information they said they needed at each of those stages, and the salesperson by giving them the tools and the assets to provide that information and remove some of those friction points. So that's the way I think about understanding the buyer's journey. It's a lot of customer and team member discovery conversations to really pinpoint what happens there in a purchasing process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Nitin, I know we think about the buyer journey in stages. What are those stages?
Yeah, in a lot of these constructs, instead of trying to boil the ocean, it's better to break it down, right? And so, like you mentioned, a great way to look at the buyer journey is in 3 stages. And so, what are these 3 stages? Generally, you'll find there's awareness, where people are becoming aware of a challenge, a problem on their end, because ultimately, what leads them to buy our product is not necessarily something on our side. It may be something on their side. Maybe they had a previous solution and that didn't work, or their situation changed and they needed a solution like ours. So first is awareness. Then comes consideration. Okay, so they have a problem, they have a situation. Now they're saying, okay, so should I buy this solution? Should I buy that solution? So that is consideration. And the third stage is the actual decision. So okay, they've looked at various products out there and solutions, and now they're like, okay, which one should I go with? And what's interesting about this is, like I mentioned, my background, I've seen this in B2C, I've seen this in B2B, I've also seen this in B2G, like selling to government agencies. I've seen this at public safety companies, I've seen this at media companies, I've seen this at e-commerce. So pretty much wherever you go, there's a good chance that these 3 buyer journey stages will apply in your case. How should we tailor our message? How should we approach our messaging to these different buyer stages, right? So first, when you think about awareness, you want primarily educational content, right? So that's not the time to make a sales pitch, right? You want to educate your audience. How do you do that? You can use content like blogs. You can maybe create white papers that explain, how generally problems like these can be solved without, again, necessarily talking about your product solution. You can have webinars where you maybe invite some thought leaders from the industry and talk about, hey, what is a best-in-class kind of a solution to this kind of a problem? Again, it's not a sales pitch, it's just like education. You can even have industry reports. If you're in a position where you can author a report, maybe you do a survey and you create a report based on that, that is excellent. If not, you can maybe even commission reports. So awareness, think about like education, right? It's not a sales pitch. When we think about consideration, so that is the next stage of the buyer journey, then customers want, a little bit more detail. Okay, so they understand, from a high level what these problems are and what kinds of ways you can approach this. Now they want to understand different solutions. So here, when they're looking at your product, they want to see things like case studies, right? How did you solve this for another customer? And ideally, it'll be a customer in their situation, right? So if you're doing B2B and this customer is an enterprise looking to buy, that's great. You don't want to give them like a B2C solution or a case study. So make sure you have your case study that is right. You can have product comparisons. So either different products that you offer, and hey, if you're looking for this, maybe this is the solution for you. If you're looking for that, maybe this is the solution. If you like, you can even have a competitive set, right? So you can say, hey, us versus the competition. We do like these 10 things. The competition just does these 3 things like that. You can have customer testimonials. So if you have actual statements that your customers have shared, ideally, if this is in public domain, right? If this is in G2 reviews or so, you can share that because people can actually go to G2 and check that out. Or if they've shared this on social media, that's a great place. You can have reviews and so on. So these are some of the things that you have during the consideration phase. Then you have the decision phase. Okay, they've looked at all these different solutions. They're ready to buy, and they're like getting down to the wire. So here, what you need is really invest in excellent product demos. Show them the ins and outs of your product, how exactly it works, and how that really beats the competition. Give them free trials if you can, right? There's nothing like actually tasting the product before they fall in love with it. And so if you can afford a free trial, definitely include that. Of course, provide all pricing information. So if it is like a big ticket item that they're buying, they understand exactly how that works. If it is like a subscription product, what is that subscription? What are the optional packages that they may have to get? And a really A+ way to do this will be if you include like an ROI calculator, right? So, hey, yeah, you're going to spend this much money to buy this product, but here's how much maybe it's going to save you in a 5-year term, right? Versus like a total cost of ownership, things like that. So those are some of the ways you think about the buyer journey stages and some of the content that can apply to those stages.
Awesome. Justin, I know Nitin spoke to a couple of things like case studies and reviews and these sort of things. And by the way, shout out to the interactive demo technology providers out there that allow you to offer those product tours and those demo experiences that might feel like a free trial and these sort of things, or another option or alternative to those. We just love those folks, so just want to give them a shout out. But Justin, back to these stages and touch points. How should we think about these touch points?
Yeah, the way that I like to think about them is, again, we're talking about these 3 stages of awareness, consideration, and decision. So what type of information does the buyer need at that stage to make progress to the next stage? And where do they seek out that information? So just to go back to Nitin's examples, in the awareness stage, the information that they're probably seeking is information about a given problem that they are experiencing. Oops, sorry, the light went off here. There we go. So the information that they're seeking is probably about a given problem that they're experiencing, right? And where they're seeking it might be on the various destinations that they and their colleagues or their persona tends to live. So, webinars, as Nitin mentioned, are a great way to provide information around a given problem, and promoting those webinars on channels like LinkedIn that marketers and sales folks and people in certain industries hang out, right, is a great way to build awareness of your brand and your solutions around a given problem that buyers are seeking solutions for. As we go to the consideration stage, that's where they start to maybe identify a couple of solutions out there that exist for the problem that they're trying to solve, right? So they might be visiting your website at this point. And as Nitin mentioned, they're looking for things like social proof, right? Are people similar to me solving similar problems successfully with this solution? So you'll want to have case studies on your website. You'll want to have competitive comparison or alternative solution pages as well, because they're also probably considering other solutions out there and trying to understand what are the differences between these various solutions that we're considering, and which one is a better fit for me, right? And then finally, as they get to the decision stage, and maybe even at the end of the consideration stage, but definitely at the decision stage, they're probably talking to your sales team about a potential purchase, right? And this is the point where they're starting to bring in the various different stakeholders across their organization, right? So an asset like a proposal comes into play here, right? Where the sort of executive in charge of the decision is going to want to know things like, what is this solution? What problems is it solving for us? Beyond buying it, how is it going to be implemented? How are we going to be supported? What is the cost of this? And then the CFO is going to start to want to understand things like the pricing, but also, as Nitin mentioned, things like an ROI calculator can come into play here, where beyond how much is this going to cost, they're going to want to know what sort of return are we going to get on that investment? And then maybe other stakeholders as well from the security team wanting to know what are the various different security credentials that this company has, or the technical team to know how it fits into their existing systems. So again, I think thinking about it from that perspective of what information are they trying to understand at this stage, where are they seeking this information, is a great way to think about what sort of content you need to put together and where you need to distribute that content to really help that buyer answer those questions and then make it to the next stage of that buying journey.
Awesome. Nitin, of course, we are super biased around personalization and making sure that what you send or provide prospects throughout the buyer journey should always be as personalized as possible. How can we personalize and target assets during this buyer journey?
Yeah, personalization, I think all of us can relate to that. Whether we've been shopping in a store and people, when they approach, let's say a salesperson of the store approaches us, instead of just saying like a standard boilerplate thing, if they say, hey, you know what, based on the way you look, I think you'll really like these jeans, or you know what, your style seems to be maybe a little bit more formal. I've got this excellent blazer that'll go really well. So personalization definitely adds a magic touch, whether you're a consumer or even a business buyer. And I'll tell you, even to government agencies. So whoever you are, personalization is very important. How do we do that? One is we have to try and segment our audience into different categories. And that is really how we tailor. Now, the way we segment our customer base, it could be based on industry. Perhaps you have a solution set that can help, let's say, I mentioned my background, right? I've been in the automotive industry. So you have like, hey, how can product X for automotive, how does that work? I've been in e-commerce. You can say, hey, product X for e-commerce. I've been in public safety. You can say product X for public safety. So all your materials, you should have, for example, the graphics, the images that you have. If it's public safety, have police officers, those kinds of things. If it is automotive, you have like various cars and technology, trucks, things like that. So make sure that your materials are tailored by industry. That's a great way to do that segmentation. Another way you can do it is by company size, right? Maybe the way different industries use your product is not that different, but maybe it depends on company size. If it is, let's say, a 10,000 employee company versus a 100 company startup, right? Maybe they use your product very differently. And the things that appeal to a 10,000 employee company, it may be all infosec and security and all of that regulation. Do they comply with these standards? Maybe to a 100% startup, maybe security isn't like totally top of mind, but what they care about is how quickly they can deploy it, because they don't have 6 months to get this thing to market. So in your case, you may find that segmentation by company size is also important. You may also find that within once you segment by the industry or the company size, you may even find that there are different job roles. And Justin actually alluded to this, right? The person who is buying, right? First of all, the user may or may not be the economic buyer, okay? So the person who's using it, they may care about a certain set of features within your product, maybe the user interface, maybe how much the learning curve, things like that. The economic buyer may be the purchasing department. They may have a total different calculus that goes into this, right? Maybe user interface, they don't care about that. They want to know, like, how much do they pay up front? Is this like a subscription that they pay annually? And are they going to get prepayment discounts if they pay up front? So they have different considerations. So segment, you can also do that based on the job role. You can also segment based on the pain points, right? So your product, it may solve, let's say, 4 or 5 different pain points. For people who are not able to invest in a full data center themselves. This thing is all in the cloud. Okay, so that's one way of solving the problem. For people who are trying to get a competitive edge, this is a solution that is always being updated. Every sprint, you got like new features coming in. Okay, now that's a different pain point that is solved. So you can segment based on the industry, you can segment based on company size, you can segment based on the job roles, you can segment based on the pain points. Make sure you segment it and you tailor your message for these right segments so that when they get the message, it's not like this person doesn't understand what I'm talking about. They're like, oh man, this person gets me. So that is segmentation. You also can tailor based on an account-based marketing approach. Nowadays, when we sell, we may be up against a very large enterprise. We're trying to really get this fish in. And when you use account-based marketing techniques, this is essentially putting them on a journey, right? So don't immediately, once, let's say they attend your webinar, boom, you jump in and say, hey, I want to give you a demo of my product, right? Take your time. And with account-based marketing, you essentially get them through the different stages of the buyer journey, right? Even if it is a big enterprise, just because they attended the webinar, they may still be in that awareness phase, right? So you maybe get their email and you add them to your newsletter. And you make sure that every time you inform them about, hey, here are some resources, we just wrote a blog article about this, you can download a white paper, things like that. Once you've had enough points of contact, Justin talked about touch points, right? Once you've had enough points of contact at the awareness stage, then you bring it into the more subsequent stages. And this is really a case of where slow is fast and fast is slow. Just because they had one touch point with you, you quickly go into the sale, you may find that you fall flat on your face. And then you may not get a chance to engage with this customer for another, who knows, 6 months, 12 months, maybe even longer. So sometimes slow is fast and fast is slow. So to summarize, the way you personalize is you first do your segmentation right. And then for key accounts, you can use account-based marketing. And that's what I found to be very effective.
Yeah, and just one thing I wanted to point out, just speaking to what Justin alluded to earlier, speaking to your sales team will give you some great insight. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that you don't have your own product marketing oriented research and things like that. Even if you're a consumer brands do speak to end customers. It's just a different way, right? It's a different stakeholder with a different title. Maybe it's not necessarily that direct salesperson because they don't have one, right? But back to my point, one of the great ways I think to understand where a piece of content should come in or what the reality of where that persona is, because we've all been, well, I've been on the sales side where I've gotten a lead list from marketing, which I'm on the marketing side now, been on that side for the last couple of years, so love everyone, right? But we've sat there and we've determined in certain situations that, you know what, this type of prospect after this touch point is from my experience as a salesperson here. So as product marketers, I think it's super powerful to go again, just like Justin mentioned, go out there, speak to sales, of course, within a B2B context, and get their perspective. And then you can make decisions on what type of content and how to categorize that buyer at that stage in the buyer journey or that step, right? But Justin, this is actually a good segue into measuring product marketing's impact on the buyer journey. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think this is a big topic. Product marketers often get seen as order takers, right? And I think that's because it can be really challenging to measure business impact of product marketing. And if you're not measuring business impact, you can often be seen as somebody that's just fulfilling orders, right? So I think, those product marketers that are able to ultimately tie their activities to true business impact are those that end up being seen as a much more strategic resource than a tactical order taker. But the way that I like thinking about measuring product marketing's impact on the buyer journey is really sort of 3 buckets of measurements. The first I think of is, particularly when it comes to sales assets, is sales asset usage, right? So sales reps are always asking for different types of assets that they want to use in the sales process to guide the buyer through their journey, right? One pagers and decks and so on. And it's important for product marketers to measure that they're not just requesting those assets, but they're actually using those assets, right? And that that what they're delivering is actually having an impact on the productivity of the sales reps. So that's one thing that I like to do, is to look at it on that level. We've created these one pagers, we've created these decks, we've created these case studies or these competitive pages. Are the sales team actually using those assets to drive impact throughout the buyer's journey? The next layer that I like to think about is buyer engagement, right? So, okay, the sales team is actually using these pieces of collateral, but is the buyer engaging with them, right? Is it resonating with the buyer? Are they checking out these assets? Are they downloading it? Or if it's something on your website, like a alternative page or a case study, is traffic being driven to that page, and are people engaging with those pages? Again, you brought up, George, interactive product demos. Those products do a great job of measuring engagement, right? You can actually see sort of what they're engaging with, how long they're staying through those interactive demos, where they're dropping off, right? So that's kind of the second layer that I like to look at. And the final layer, and the most important one that I alluded to earlier, is the impact on the business and on sales. So, are these assets or these deliverables that the product marketing team is creating actually driving pipeline, if it's sort of pre-sale, and revenue? And what are other metrics that we can look at to really see the impact? Well, if it's a competitive asset, maybe we can look at win rate, competitive win rate, and see if it's actually having an impact on win rate. Or if it's things like ROI calculators or proposals or assets that come later in the sales process that are answering different bits of information for different stakeholders, how's that actually impacting overall win rate, but also the sales cycle, right? If we're delivering the right assets, the right bits of information at the right time, we should be seeing a more frictionless sales process that's faster than without those assets. So those are sort of the three buckets of metrics that I really like to look at when it comes to the sales process and the buyer's journey. Is, again, is the sales team actually using the collateral and the assets that we're developing for them? Are buyers then engaging with those assets? And then finally, are these assets having an impact on actual sales and the sales journey and sales process?
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Nitin, and actually, maybe we'll start off with Nitin, and then Justin, maybe you can chime in. How do you see the future of these buyer journeys, especially in a world where AI seems to be growing by the minute?
Yeah, I think looking into the crystal ball is, of course, a risky proposition, right? Like, I think most of the predictions that the pundits make, like towards the beginning of the year of what's going to happen, by the end of the year, you see like all that thing is out the window. So as of now, you're right. It does appear that AI is here to stay, and it is a formidable force, right? It is a force for good. It is something that the way I like to look at it is, with AI helping product marketers, things that perhaps took months now take weeks. Things that took weeks now take days. Maybe things that took days now take hours, right? So it's like a time machine. It helps us like zoom into the future and get things done quicker. So that is definitely the positive side of AI. Of course, AI can also be it's not foolproof, right? So you can't just like throw something in there and have it spit something out and run with it. That may be at your own peril, because one of the challenges, because AI is so good, is it seems so believable. Oh yeah, this makes total sense, until you spend a little time thinking about it and you realize, no, man, I got to do this whole thing myself. So a lot of pitfalls, of course, definitely watch out for AI. Unfortunately, AI will also mean that companies will be able to do more with less. And we're already seeing some of that with, companies like trying to one-up each other in terms of layoffs. And so unfortunately, I think that will be a reality, which is where I think the more creative and the more entrepreneurial we are, in running our own businesses. And kudos to you guys, right? Like with AssetMule, you're taking the future into your own hands. You're taking the bull by the reins, right? So I think that will be the way to go. Another trend that I see is I like to say that the future is fractional. A lot of people may find that they don't need to, or companies, for example, they may not need like a full-time product marketer, right? They may just need a fractional product marketer, and it may be episodic when they have, let's say a number of product launches and strategy to figure out, they may need more. And then there may be times of where they don't need as much, while other companies may be launching stuff, right? So others may need more. So as part of this trend of taking the future into our own hands, I think the more we embrace fractional working, the better, right? Because it's always like not one company is going to be super intense all the time, but if we serve multiple clients, we'll be able to have a pretty decent workload that we can handle, and we'll be able to help the companies prosper as well. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts as I look into my crystal ball for AI and product marketing.
Excellent. Justin, why don't you take us home?
Yeah, I'll start in a different area and then I'll back into AI. One big trend that we're really interested in and we're seeing is when it comes to the buyer's journey is buyer enablement, right? I think the last decade or so has really been focused on sales enablement. How can we enable the salesperson to sell more effectively? But we're seeing some really interesting trends on how buyers are approaching their purchasing processes. For instance, over 80% of the sales process or the buying process now happens without a salesperson in the room, right? At the same time, there's more stakeholders than ever before that are involved in a sales process. I think on average, there's like 11 stakeholders involved in a purchasing decision. And a lot more people also don't want salespeople involved, or they want a seller-free environment, right? I think that I saw a stat that said 33% of buyers want a seller-free environment. So the big question is, how do sales reps continue to influence their sales process, which is very closely tied to their commission and their earnings, in a world where they're not involved in the majority of the purchasing process? And I think the answer there is buyer enablement. And what do I mean by buyer enablement? It's giving the buyer the information that they need when they need it to be able to make a purchasing decision, right? And this is really where AI comes into play, I think, is if you're giving buyers the information that they need when they need it, you're going to have a lot more iterations or versions of an asset than we do today, right? It's going to be a lot more personalized. So being able to surface the right micro bits of content within an asset to speak to that specific buyer based on what they want and what their needs are and what their challenges and their goals are, is something that at scale, that level of personalization at scale is only something that AI can really do, right? So I think that's a really key trend that we're watching very closely and we're intimately involved in. I also think, to Nitin's point, is what this means is that we can do a lot more with less, right? So in the previous world, you would need an entire army of product marketers supporting a sales team to be able to create that level of personalization, right? And now with AI, you can have a lot more solo product marketers or fractional product marketers or small product marketing teams that can support a sales team in developing that level of personalization and really giving each of the buyers the experience that they need and the information they need to make those purchasing decisions. So I think it's going to be a really interesting couple of years ahead, but we're really bullish on both buyer enablement and the way that AI, but also human touch can also play in this world.
Excellent. Nitin, Justin, thank you so much for your time. And for all of you who have tuned in to this workshop, we're very grateful for your time. Nitin, real quick, if folks wanted to get in contact with you, maybe I know you have a lot of really great content. What are the best URLs or handles to do so?
Yeah, definitely. I love connecting with people, and the best place to reach me is LinkedIn. So just search for my name, NitinKartik. I put a little car logo next to my name, so that's one easy way to find me. So definitely check out my content, And if you'd like to chat, just send me a message, and I'm always happy to chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Justin, how about you? I know the answer to this, but go for it.
Yeah, I think it's LinkedIn as well, right? I think that's the place to be for us sales folks and product marketers. So find me on LinkedIn. I'm the Justin Dorfman that is with AssetMule. And also follow AssetMule on LinkedIn. Check out our website, assetmule.ai, and give our product a try. We talked about free trials earlier, and we definitely have one. And would love to see you give it a go and give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
Incredible. Well, everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful day.